Chicago, not hurting it, and by them not being there and creating a relationship with the president, it's the worst thing they could do.
No, it's more about her and her, political bona fides with the left than it's what's good for the people of Chicago. It's good to have a decent working relationship with a president, even if it's a president of a different party. Gary worked with the Obama administration. They didn't agree on a lot, but you have to interface. That's just the way it is. I want to play something that President Trump said today about, well, referencing Afghanistan versus Chicago. Watch.
All over the world, they're talking about Chicago. Afghanistan is a safe place by comparison. It's true. Police officers of Chicago are entitled to a police superintendent who has their backs and knows what he's doing.
Gary, when I was in Chicago about a month ago doing a special down in the South Side, I spoke to a lot of police officers, and it was interesting. Across backgrounds, culturally diverse group of folks. They all, the stories they told me, could have done 2 hours just on what the police were telling me about what happens politically to the police day in and day out.
Well, you know what, Laura? The simplest, starkest example is if you compare the fact that in 2013 and 2014, we had record lows in this city as far as the murder rate goes under my tenure. And then compare 2013, 14, and 15, my last 3 years as superintendent, to the last 3 years in the city after the fallout from a political event, which was a terrible event with Laquan McDonald. There have been 638 more murders in this city over the last 3 years than the previous 3 years. So if anybody thinks that what we're doing politically in this city is making progress, I don't think so. I think what we're doing is ripping at the heart of what makes a safe city. And at the end of the day, we're not going to succeed until we make this city safe.
And Bernie, to the people who need policing the most, they're the ones who are most poorly served by this highly anti-law enforcement atmosphere fostered by so many on the left.
Look, Gary and I both worked for Mayor Giuliani, who created the Renaissance of New York and proved one thing to the entire country. Nobody wants to live, work, visit, or go to school in a place where they're not safe, where mothers have to put their babies in bathtubs to protect them from random gunfire. That's what's going on in Chicago. It's a detriment to the community, what they're doing. And for them not to be there today, to really, be there with the president and get his support, I just think it's outrageous.
Well, they actually would have found out. They could have worked with him on a whole bunch of issues, would have helped Chicago, but they put politics before the people. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Two men with incredible experience in law enforcement. We salute your service as well to your cities and to this country at large. And coming up, how do you become a sympathetic terrorist? Well, you die in a raid that was greenlit by President Trump. Some of the media reaction to the death of ISIS leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi was shameful, and that's coming next. President Trump proudly announced yesterday that Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, that murderous zealot who led ISIS, died during a raid in Syria by U.S. Special Ops. To most Americans, this is welcome news, but to others, it was just another chance to go after the president. Some said the language the president used was too rough.
The one part of the president's remarks that did bother me was this continual piling on of humiliation.
There's a long trail ahead of him actually finally releasing details, explicit details, some of which sort of echoed, and frankly, the crudeness you would often expect to hear maybe from ISIS.
Oh, my God. Describing Baghdadi as whimpering is the exact type of language he should have used. Well, then the critique became, how dare he not tell Nancy?
I thought it extraordinary that he had not, after the operation was over, spoken to the Speaker of the House. That we are so broken down. As far as we know, he had not notified any Democrats.
Maybe if they all weren't serial leakers, he would have. Others were quick, though, to downplay Baghdadi's significance.
ISIS wasn't the cause of death of almost 3,000 people in the United States. I think from a standpoint of symbolism and importance of the country, taking down Osama bin Laden had a lot more meaning than this.
Oh my gosh, you can barely speak. And finally, my favorite critique of the Baghdadi takedown, Russia.
What role did Russia play in the operation?
Oh, my goodness. Yes, Al, that was the big question coming up. He's an insignificant figure, Baghdadi. Let's just leave it at that. Well, look, they've shown this time and again the left does not care about what they claim they cared so much about with the Syria pullout, defeating ISIS. Defeating Trump is a far more laudable goal. And there was another refrain following this raid, one summed up by Richard Haas in the New York Times, saying the following: it could not have happened without U.S. forces on the ground that have been pulled out. The conditions that made the operation possible may not exist in the future. Joining me now is Joe Kent, retired Special Forces warrant officer and Gold Star husband, whose wife was killed fighting ISIS in Syria earlier this year. Joe, thank you for being here. And I can say for all of our viewers, we're so sorry for your loss of your wife. You just heard me mention what Richard Haas said, that operations like this will not be possible now unless we maintain a significant or some footprint in the country. Your reaction?
No, thanks for having me on, and thank you for the condolences. That's absolutely false. We'll still be able to strike at ISIS, especially in Syria, considering the fact that we have permanent military bases in Turkey and in Iraq, and every single neighboring country to Turkey, to Syria, supports our war against ISIS. So we won't have any issues launching counterterrorism raids or airstrikes into Syria.
Were you shocked at the reaction from so many on the left to this news? I mean, this was significant news. And point by point by point, downplaying it, or trashing the commander-in-chief?
Yeah, I was. This is a great day yesterday for America. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi ran one of the most evil organizations that we've known in recent history, and he's also significant because he, as a non-state actor, took over 2 separate countries, all without the support of any external countries. So taking him out was a great success for our nation, and so I was pretty surprised to see folks chime in for partisan reasons. I think a lot of the big reason why they did was because Trump was able to launch that raid without us having as many permanent bases in Syria, because we're beginning to withdraw. There's an agenda there that wants to obviously poke at Trump, but there's also an agenda that wants to keep us deeply entrenched in these conflicts. It seems to be forever and ever.
What is the rub there? Is it the military-industrial complex, keep the armaments, keep the machine going, keep the footprint there, we spend a lot of money, budgets stay high? What's your view on this?
My view on this is that President Trump has returned leadership to the United States military. The commander-in-chief is supposed to direct the military at the will of the people. That's what we elect him to do, and not just give the military a blank check. But in giving the military a blank check, you overburden the military. The military is a tool of foreign policy, but it's not the only tool. The 2 previous presidents, both Republican and Democrat, Bush and Obama, turned to the military for everything in terms of foreign policy in the Middle East and counterterrorism. President Trump has used the full scope of national power. He uses our economic strength, and he's negotiating with all the relevant actors and making people pay their fair share. He's trying to limit the amount of folks that we have on the ground, because he's shrewdly assessed that all we've done in the last 18 years of having a permanent footprint is continue to lose. I think that rubs a lot of folks in the military the wrong way just because it's new.
Yeah, Joe, and your family and you personally paid just a heart-wrenching sacrifice, and we really appreciate your words tonight. Incredibly well said. There's a picture of your beautiful wife, and our prayers go out to you and to your entire family, and thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, important words that every American needs to hear. Coming up, the